Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Doris Fields. I am the host of the Martin Luther King Jr. CloseUp Theater Troupe Performance and Discussion. I would like to introduce the panelists today. We have Heather Usler Smith is a third year Master's of Fine Arts student in Applied Drama and Theater for the Young program at Eastern Michigan University. She also serves as a graduate assistant for the TYA Tour, Accessibility Design for the School of Communication, Media, and Theater Arts. We also have with us Hananiah Wiggins, is a second year graduate student in Interpretation and Performing Studies program at Eastern Michigan University. They also serve as a graduate assistant for EMU forensics team. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am just I don't even know what to say. I'm just thrilled by your performance. I of course watched it several times, but I think it was absolutely amazing. It was just breathtaking. And my first question for you is, how did you decide on the topics? And how did you bring your ideas to life? I think that's important for the audience to know.
Yeah, so this was a weird challenge this year because we've been in rehearsals virtually. And we've been in rehearsals virtually now. This is our third show since March, when we actually started to take the taking over process. So the way we decided on topics was not so much Hananiah and I as it was a full group kind of an experience. We did pitch a couple of specific scenes to the troupe, and then we asked the troupe to kind of come together, and we've been again using the form to the best of our ability. So we actually utilized a Jamboard on Google. I'm a big fan of like chalkboard and whiteboard normally. Like I like having big poster, up with things. So this was kind of our substitute to do that. And they came up with some really brilliant, wonderful things. And then we kind of ran from there. And our process was very, let's come up with a topic. Let's have a big conversation about it. Let's really dig into it and then figure out how we want to share that story.
Wow. It was just, I wrote down so many things because I have so many questions to ask. But I know that we have audience members who are watching and want to ask questions too. So we welcome any of your particular questions. We have Caitlin Willis, and she wanted to know, it was incredibly well done. She says, thanks to me, it's EMU talent, it's not me. So I am grateful for that, but it was strictly Heather and Hananiah and the rest of the CloseUp troupe. It just absolutely amazing. Another question that I have, which is interesting, is there were so many messages. What particular messages did you want the audience to walk away with? Because I had so many. So I don't know if that was your purpose, or were you intending to have like a narrow scope when you were doing the performances?
So I think, or at least for me, what we wanted the audience to walk away with the most wasn't really a particular message, because as you said, each scene kind of tackled a different thing, but really a call to action for them to leave complicity behind and start to interrogate what justice and peace means for them and what work they're willing to embark on in order for us to reach that true justice and true peace for all of us, and figuring out what that means for them.
That was because I left with so many impressions that I was like, well, where do I go? What can I do? I wanted to get up and do something at that particular moment. One scene, and then I'll ask each one of you which scene was most important to you, but the one scene that powerful to me, and I think it was your voice, Hananiah, when you talked about Emmett Till. And I just remember hearing about Emmett Till when I was a child, and it was painful at the time, reading it. And then years later, I remember sharing it in class that the woman that accused him said she lied. And so that has always had a particular impact on me. And then the incident this summer with Sarah Cooper triggered me. because Emmett Till lives with me every single day. And so I don't think as a person of color, people know some of the hardships we carry. But for me, that was a powerful moment. And the 846. But Heather, what was your favorite part of the presentation performance?
Yeah, Hananiah and I talked before kind of the process started, and they pitched Furies to me, and the idea of acknowledging anger and really bringing power to it, and the idea of embracing it and showing it for its power. I just thought that was so beautiful, and I know the troupe worked on that piece a lot, and then Hananiah really took it and honed it and shaped it. And I remember the experience of reading it before we did it, and I just thought it was really, really beautifully written and really captured something important. And so that I think it's hard to pick a favorite, but I think that's one of them.
I know. I'm like, I know. I picked that one, but there were so many that I couldn't constrain myself. Hananiah, what was your favorite one?
I also had a similar issue of trying to pick your favorite baby at that moment. But I would say it was Black joy as a form of protest. Like you said, there are just so many hardships that go along with living in this world and it's experiencing this world and how the world chooses to experience my Blackness. And to get that moment to kind of just focus on positivity and what nourishes my soul and what makes me happy. And then getting to look at the different images that we got from different community partners, different people in the troupe. They shared videos of themselves or pictures of them with their family. And then I asked my family for some videos and some pictures, and throwing my first birthday party up in there. It was just really nice to get a break from acknowledging the pain and to focus on what we do to take care of ourselves.
And that's powerful, because just powerful. I'm like, it's powerful in so many ways. But I think about when people go back to slavery, that's what it kind of wrote in my mind. And that people thought because African Americans were joyful or singing, that they were happy to be in their condition. Not understanding that the Black joy is my coping mechanism. That with everything around that's going on, that's hateful, discrimination, prejudice, racism, I have to somehow find a coping mechanism for me to make it through every single day. So that Black joy, you're right, was absolutely, it was poignant, because it brought back so many things for me as I was watching it. So that's why I was like, it's too many. I'm gonna have to watch it again. It's just, it was just so powerful. I was so excited about it.
I'm so glad you were impacted by that.
Yes. Why is it so important? I have one more question. I'll just ask this question, but go ahead and put the question up. I was just going to ask, why is it so important to celebrate Martin Luther King Day through performance? And are any of the students professionally trained? Or do you do training sessions with them? They just are so talented and made me so proud of EMU.
So to answer the first part of that question, why do we think it's important to focus on performance on days like Martin Luther King Jr. Day? Just as a world, we learn and experience things in so many different ways. Some people do better reading, some people do better listening to lectures. And then I personally view performance as experience. And, whenever you can get the audience to engage in what you're performing as if they are part of that performance. And I think there are definitely some parts of the show where audience leaves just viewing and becomes a part of it. That I think is one reason why we focus on performance in this aspect.
Okay. Any other comments? I'm going to go to the next question. Ellen Gold, who I have to say is also a co-chair for the Martin Luther King Committee, very excited. She wants to know, where are the students from and what role did they play in creating the scenes?
The students are from Eastern, and they're from all throughout the university. So this is not fully, we have a few students who are from the theater program, but not everybody. And I think that's one of the things that makes CloseUp special. And in terms of, and we also have 2 alum, so who've joined us this year as we're in this crazy transition. And the role they play in creating scenes is substantial. I really truly believe that their voices shine through and are what you saw tonight and what you've seen in the other shows that we've worked on. We will talk as a group, and then they will do a lot of writing, and then Hannah and I do editing. But we really believe that that this is an opportunity not for our voices to be centered, but for the troupe to be centered, and for that to be representative of their experiences as a whole, and hopefully something that can speak to larger experiences.
Absolutely.
So you do not have to be a theater major.
Nope.
Very important point. And if someone was interested in joining CloseUp, could they contact either one of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be having auditions at the end of this semester, actually, to jumpstart the next season, because we'll have our orientation show and everything else that's on the horizon.
Yeah, and there may be even some opportunities this semester as we work on our next piece.
Okay, great. Another additional question that I have, it was so reflective for me, but discussing and performing race makes other people uncomfortable. I think that your performance was self-reflecting. And the lesson I learned from your performance for me is make sure, and I think I'm vocal anyway, but make sure you stand up. What lessons do you think the audience will take from that? Because I was like, okay, voting, I'm calling my congressman. I'm doing all this. I'm saying my voice. I'm speaking up. We the people, which was also a powerful, does that include me? So what do you want the audience to learn from the performance? It was so much. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We're I think processing.
You're processing.
Well, because I'm like, I want you to learn everything. Actually, I want you to walk away from watching this experience and know that there's so much work to do. There's so much ground we need to cover. But yeah, there's a lot we want the audience to walk away with.
Now, the one scene or particular section, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I literally was like crying during that. How did you decide? Because people do that 8 minute and 46 seconds in different ways. I thought having you all there and then listing the names and then going back to 1968 to show that this is not a recent issue. How did you do that? What was the concept behind that?
Yeah, I think that was actually one of the first scenes that we talked about. Right, Hannah and I, like that was pretty early on in this process. And I think we wanted eyes to be open. I think the reason that we had the troupe on screen for that is that we wanted to make sure that it's a matter of people being seen and heard and remembered and acknowledged. And I think there's an idea of not being able to turn your back on it, and that you need to open your eyes and see what is happening, and see, again, like you said, that this goes way, way back. And I think it was an opportunity too for the troupe to have to also participate in that process of being there in that 8 minutes and 46 seconds. We filmed it, and we timed it, and it was all of us being silent and together, and there during that. And I think that was an important part of that process as well.
I'm getting teary-eyed now. I'm like, because I was thinking I'm like, stop. Okay. All right. We have a question from Nautica. As co-directors, how much time overall went into preparing, and what challenges did you face virtually?
I don't know if I can put like we spent this much time on preparation, because Heather and I are easily excited. So we've been talking about this show since the summer, probably. Like 846 was something that Heather, I think you pitched to me at least early fall.
Yeah.
So that time of us just talking together, pulling out different material, poetry and short stories and articles for the troupe to digest, and then participating in those conversations with the troupe, watching them do their research. I want to take a pause and just say this entire experience could not have happened without the dedication and the love and the trust that the CloseUp troupe put into this performance.
Absolutely.
They came in intentional and engaged and honest and true about the work that they were doing. And I am forever blessed and grateful for what they did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have a question, which I want you to help me explain it, because I did laugh, and I shouldn't have, but I did. The Ally Airline. I was like, no, they didn't. Did they? So let's talk about an ally, because I something that stood out in me, and I don't remember who voiced it, but they said ally versus accomplice. What's the difference? Can you elaborate on that and how you put that together?
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up in that first Jamboard that we asked the troupe to do was this idea of performative allyship. So it's the idea, I'm going to change my Instagram, I'm going to change my Facebook profile to that black square, but that's about it. You know, I'm going to post an article, but I don't know if I'm actually going to read it. I'm going to say things, but, you know, am I really examining my own whiteness? Am I really bothering to do the work? And so they really wanted to talk about that being problematic, and that not really moving us forward. And I'm glad you laughed. I think it's funny. Like, I think that scene is meant to make you uncomfortable laugh. Like, oh man, oh
yes.
Yeah. And so we were really thrilled that they were so ready to jump on board with that. And they're the ones who came up with this idea of centering it in this airline, and they wrote them, and we just kind of took it from there. And I loved that when they were finally doing the performance of it, that it was very like tongue in cheek, and also this idea of, I'm going to say this, but I'm kind of mad about it. You know, like, this is not okay.
Yes. So I agree with that. Hananiah, what do you think? What was your take on it?
Well, I'm glad you laughed too, because I laughed a lot, actually. For me, I think when we get to these uncomfortable or taboo topics, it's when we can laugh about them, that we can have an actual open, honest discussion about it. And then it is just that idea of allyship being performative, that it's a label that so many people want to put on themselves. And they're not waiting for anyone else in the room to acknowledge them. So for me, that difference between being an ally and an accomplice is an ally is someone who's going to kind of be a passerby or a bystander and watch what's happening. And an accomplice is someone who's willing to get in those trenches with me to do that difficult work and engage and take some of that that fire or that hardship that I otherwise would take as a Black body. It's the people who were willing to go to those protests with me in the summer, and even if they weren't getting to speak up or lead a chant or do whatever, they're there to make sure those of us who can't escape it know that we're not alone in this process. And that's what an accomplice does for me.
Yes, I totally agree. I could not go to the protests this summer, but one of my closest friends went, and she said, "I'm going for you." And so that to me was like, she's with me. She understands my struggle. She speaks up. even when I can't. And so that to me is important. And I want people to know that there's a difference, of someone standing by your side or somebody waving as you're walking down the street or somebody walking with you. And so that to me was important.
I read something this summer that someone said, when it comes to, filming something that the police is doing to me, like, don't film me getting beat by the police, come and stop them, or, save my life. Don't watch it happen. Don't be a spectator to my violence.
Because you want that person to be involved in the process and be true.
Yeah.
And I think for me, because I've taught race for so many years, I immediately know. I may not say it, but I immediately know when someone is discriminatory, racist, or prejudiced. And so I may not scream it out and say it, but I know by the nonverbals. I know by what they say, mannerisms, all of those things are like triggers. And so you immediately know. And so how do you, dealing with that? And I'm so appreciative of you for bringing it out so that we can have those discussions. Because there are two other things I hope we get time to talk about. But I was like, how to protest, which is so timely now that when you're a person of color and you protest, it's a different image that is there. Can you talk about that particular scenes, about the protest, excuse me, and how you came up with that? Because I thought that was ingenious as well and timely.
Absolutely. So that was a scene that we actually started talking about in the summer when the protests were going on. And originally we were looking for a place to fit it into our orientation show that we did for the university. But they're just, we were like, this, if we try and force it into here, it's going to feel so out of place because this isn't what the message of this show is about. But we knew as soon as we heard No Justice, No Peace, the idea of how to make the perfect protest was something that we wanted to tackle. The troupe talked about different protests that have occurred and the responses that those protests were met with, and the different indictments that we as people got when we try to protest in different ways. And one thing that I love about this scene, about this show really, is that we're not giving you many answers. We're not saying this is the perfect way to protest. We're raising those questions, and we're leaving the space open for you to respond, because it should be a dialogue of, how do we engage in these difficult practices?
Yeah, and I think too, it's important to note that we recorded and wrote all of that before January 6th. And I do think that we may need to, if we use that scene again in the future, we may need to think carefully about how we can include that whole shift in our collective consciousness about what just happened.
Because you have to process it. It takes some time to process it, and your feelings and everything else along with that date.
Yeah, and watching the way that was handled by law enforcement as opposed to how the summer protests were handled, and I think that's something we're going to have to talk about.
Yeah.
We just got a wonderful comment. Ellen Gold wants to please express our love and our gratitude to every Troupe member for their hard work and their dedication and making such an awesome, let me say it again, awesome movie experience. I know they volunteer their time to provide an important educational experience for all. Thank you. And I second that as well.
Yeah, well, and I know Hannah and I had said earlier, but they are rock stars. I mean, just each and every one of them. They came. We rehearsed 2.5, 3 hours twice a week, and that's hard on a computer. That's just really, really hard to do. To not have the space to be together, especially when we're having these kinds of conversations. And they brought it, and they really. I'm so proud of them, and I'm so proud to be part of this. So.
Okay. I have 2 more questions for you. I'm going to try to get them in. One question I have, which I don't even know how to answer myself, but what happened to the truth? What happened to the truth? Did that one scene is, when you were talking about We the People, did people just ignore it? is it better if we do? And I always struggle with that because those are some of the morals and values I was taught: truth, honor, and respect. My mother would always tell me, you have to be a good citizen, and what a good citizen means. And so I just, what happened to the truth? I know we all sigh because I don't know how to answer that.
I think, and follow me along a little bit.
Okay.
To me, it's because there are so many different truths that people choose to acknowledge. My truth isn't necessarily Heather's truth, isn't necessarily your truth. And then when we look back on history, there's such a colonialist lens that is attached to viewing history because that's the way it was taught. We don't view certain people as invaders or people who are enslaving people. We view them as explorers or revolutionists. Yes, I think truth is a lot in who's doing the looking.
Yeah.
That's profound. Okay. All right. My final question, and I want to hear from both you. So they want to know, when's the next close-up? Ellen asked. When is the next close-up?
Yeah, the next close-up show is we've actually already started that process. We did. I'm taking from Decky, who took from the television show Top Chef. We've been doing what we've been calling quick fires, to kind of like these little brief bursts of conversations to get us started. We're writing a full piece that is going to examine issues of consent and sex and sexual assault at a college level. So specifically speaking to college students. And so we've started developing that, and we're going to be starting hopefully some interviews soon, and then continuing the devising process, and that will go up in March or April. We don't have a final date on that yet.
Okay. We will publicize it when it comes out. We would definitely publicize it. So my final question for this evening is, what does Martin Luther King Jr. mean to you? I'll let you think, and then I'll start, and then you all have to jump in. Okay. So I'll make mine brief. That is for me a loaded question because he means absolutely everything to me. His courage and determination during a time when it was not allowed, and his grace and fighting and speaking up for people who didn't have a voice. And so I try to live my life in the image of him. Just everything about him and everything I go into, that courage and that determination, even if I experience something bad, I try to go back to that courage to lift me up. And so he means a great deal to me. Every time I feel like I walk or I make an accomplishment, it's because he opened the door for me and he stepped up first.
Yeah. I think for me, he means legacy and intention. I think there have been so many people since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who have been inspired because of him, who have done great and amazing and powerful things because he lived and because he endured. So to me, he represents hope and legacy and a future.
Yeah. Heather, you?
I think for me, he's a call to action. And I did a lot of the writing on the opening scene, and it was a real opportunity for me to examine my own experience with that. And some of that came down to, again, what Kennedy so eloquently said is that we often hear the easy quotes, the things that we like to hear, the things that make us feel good, and we don't hear the second part, or we don't hear the ones that say, okay, now go out and do. And that's a call to action for all of us. And so this has been such a wonderful opportunity to read more So, and to again, be called to speak and to do.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for participating in the Martin Luther King Day, Day celebration. Get it outdoors for close-up theater troupe performance and discussion. I urge everyone to continue to participate in the Martin Luther King activities. Tomorrow we will begin the academic programs, day one, and it will begin at 2:00. This conference takes place on the symposium platform. And if you go to www.emish.edu/MLK, you'll be able to find all of the information on the activities. Thank you so much for just an absolutely thoughtful, engaging, amazing performance. And thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.